right now. Are you all sitting comfortably? Yes, Puff. Good. Then I'll begin. This is a story is Ruby's favorite story. It's about her whole family of Hood. And this one is going to be Little Red Riding Hood.
Yes, it was on her birthday that it all began. I mean, when she was first called Red Riding Hood. And I'll tell you why. Her mother had planned a very special party for her, inviting all her friends, her aunts and uncles and cousins. Her grandmother had been invited too, but unfortunately she couldn't come because she wasn't feeling well. All kinds of games were played at the party, and everyone received a favor. Then came the best part of all. The birthday girl opened her presents. There was a new doll. There were doll clothes. There was a sewing kit. And a parasol. And lots of new games and toys and things to wear. And finally, there was one big box that was saved for the last. It was from the birthday girl's grandmother. She opened it very carefully, and inside was a bright red velvet cape with a hood attached. And when she put it on, everyone said, "Oh, a Red Riding Hood." Indeed, it was a Red Riding Hood, the kind of costume worn on very special occasions when one went riding in a carriage. But the little girl was so delighted with it that she wore it constantly. In fact, she was never seen without it, and so everyone began to call her Red Riding Hood. One morning, her mother called to her.
Red Riding Hood? Red Riding Hood, where are you, dear?
Here I am, Mother. Here I am.
How would you like to visit Grandma today?
Oh, I would love to, Mother. I haven't seen her for such a long time.
Well, she's still sick, dear. But I've made her some nice broth and dumplings and some fresh bread and jam, and I hope they make her strong again. Now, here they all are in this basket. Would you take them to her?
Of course, Mother. I'd love to.
Now, be careful in the woods not to catch your pretty cape on a broken branch.
I will, Mother.
And don't loiter on the way, or the broth will get cold.
I won't, Mother.
And don't talk to strangers.
I won't.
And don't run, or you might fall and break the bottle, and Grandma will have no broth.
I won't loiter nor run, nor talk to strangers, Mother. And I'll be careful not to tear my beautiful Red Riding Hood. Now may I go?
Yes, dear. Give Grandma my love, and be sure to be back before sundown.
I will, Mother. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Now, Red Riding Hood's grandmother lived in a small cottage within a green forest, about a half hour away from the village. It was in a beautiful, quiet spot off a little road which was not much traveled on. Red Riding Hood always loved to go there because the house was charming, standing under huge oak trees, and there was much to explore in the neighborhood, and the cool of the forest was always refreshing. And of course, she always loved to visit her grandmother, who couldn't do enough for her. She loved her so much. So Little Red Riding Hood took her basket of good things and started off for her grandmother's house with great anticipation and delight. She skipped and danced as she went on her way, and she sang to the birds, and they sang back to her.
Sweet little birdies, ever so blue, sing to me sweetly as I sing to you.
Along the way, she met other friends of hers who lived in the woods, and they were all glad to see her and greeted her warmly. There was Hippity, the squirrel.
Hi, Red Riding Hood. Hiya.
Fine, thank you, Hippity. How are you?
Okie dokie. Where you going?
To my grandmother. She's sick.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Here, take her this nut. Maybe it'll make her feel better.
Oh, that's kind of you, Hippity. But I wouldn't want to take your food from you. You'll need it this winter.
Ah, please take it, Red Riding Hood. If it helps make your grandma strong, then it will be as if I had eaten it myself.
You mean that when you give something that helps somebody else, you'll help yourself too?
Exactly. Giving makes you strong.
Oh, I see. All right, Hippity. I'll take it to Grandma. Thank you very much. I'll see you on my way back.
Okie dokie. See you later. And give my best to Grandma.
I will, Hippity. You've already given your best, but I'll give it again. Goodbye.
The birds and hippity made Red Riding Hood's heart light and all the more loving, and she skipped gaily down the road. Now, in another part of the forest, there lived a large, gray, and elegant wolf who was always hungry. And on this day in particular, he had had nothing to eat for breakfast except a bushel of blueberries, a barrel of chestnuts, and about 5 dozen mushrooms. So he was really starved. As he was scrounging around the forest looking for something more to eat, he came around a blue spruce tree, and he found himself eye to eye with Little Red Riding Hood. For a moment, to tell the truth, they were both frightened. But then Red Riding Hood, who was feeling quite full of love and friendliness today, forgot her mother's warning about not talking to strangers, and she walked toward him and she said,
Good morning, Mr. Wolf.
and the wolf, with great courtesy, said,
Good morning, Miss Red Riding Hood.
How did you know my name?
How? Why, because of the beautiful Red Riding Hood you are wearing. How becoming it is, my dear.
Thank you. My grandmother made it for me.
Oh, how kind she must be, my dear.
Yes, she is the kindest and the best grandma in the whole world.
Oh, yeah.
But alas, she's been sick, and I'm going to visit her.
Oh, how thoughtful you are, my dear. Where does she live?
About a quarter of a mile away. Her house stands under 3 big oak trees near a hedge of red berry bushes.
Oh, how cozy it sounds, my dear. How does one get in, huh?
Very simple. One just lifts the latch on the door.
Oh, how neat, my dear. What do you carry there in your basket, my dear?
Hot broth and dumplings.
Hot broth and dumplings, did you say?
Yes, and freshly baked bread and jam.
Freshly baked bread and jam.
And a nut Hippity the squirrel gave me. I hope it will all make Grandma strong again.
Oh, how pleased she will be, my dear. Do you have flowers for her too, huh?
Flowers? No, I never thought to bring any.
Oh, how thoughtless of you, my dear. Yes, one cannot visit a sick person without bringing flowers.
But where will I get them?
Where? Oh, Red Riding Hood, how blind you are, my dear. Look around you, child. The woods are filled with wildflowers of every kind and color. Why don't you gather some?
Oh, I think that's a lovely idea. But then
What? Red Riding Hood?
I promised my mother I wouldn't loiter.
Oh, how silly you are, my dear. One would hardly call gathering wildflowers for one's sick grandmother loitering. Look, see that exquisite bluebell waving in the breeze?
Where? Oh, yes, I see it. It is indeed a beauty. And look at that anemone and those morning glories. I'll gather a small bunch for Grandma.
Of course, my dear. How delighted she will be. Run along, my dear, and don't overlook those yellow daisies over there beneath that white birch. Look at her go, deeper and deeper into the forest. She'll be delayed by at least a half hour. Just time enough for me to get to Grandma's first and be the recipient of that, hot broth and dumplings, that freshly baked bread and jam. Oh, how clever I am, my dear.
And so Red Riding Hood wandered off among the trees, picking wildflowers. Each time she picked one, she always saw another prettier one farther on. So she went deeper and deeper into the woods. And the crafty wolf turned on his heels and sped toward Grandmother's house. He came upon the 3 big oak trees and the hedge of red berry bushes, just as Red Riding Hood had described it all. And there stood the charming little house where her grandmother lived. The gray and elegant wolf smoothed down his ruffled fur, hid behind an oak tree, and began to scheme.
Now, let me see. I've got to get Grandma out of there before Red Riding Hood comes and become Grandma myself. How to do it without letting the old lady see me? I must be very shrewd. I've got it. I'll pretend I'm Red Riding Hood and knock on the door. but then she'll answer it and see me. But if I knock on the back door, she'll go there, and I'll dash around to the front door, lift the latch, and go in. And while she looks for me, I'll jump into bed and wait for my dinner to arrive. Oh, how crafty I am, my dear.
So the wolf ran around to the back door and knocked.
Who's there?
It's me, Grandma, Red Riding Hood.
Oh, well, come in, dearie. Come in.
I can't open the door, Grandma.
Why not, dearie?
My arms are so full of flowers and hot broth and dumplings and fresh bread and jam and a delicious nut. Please open the door for me, Grandma.
Oh, all right, dearie. I'm coming to open it for you.
In a flash, the wolf sped around to the front door, lifted the latch, and ran in. He could see Red Riding Hood's grandmother walk out the back door looking for her granddaughter. His plan was working. He could hear her calling,
Red Riding Hood! Red Riding Hood! Where are you, dearie? Now, where could that child have gone?
and Grandma went off into the woods behind her house looking for Red Riding Hood. The wolf was pleased with himself, very pleased with himself indeed. He began to look around for some of Grandma's clothes to put on. He found a nightdress and a nightcap and a pair of spectacles, and he put them all on. Then he drew all the curtains to make the room dark, and he popped into bed, pulling the patchwork quilt up to his chin, and he began to wait for Red Riding Hood to come. It wasn't long before Red Riding Hood came, skipping up the path to her grandmother's house. Her arms were full of wildflowers and the basket of food, but she freed one hand to knock on the door.
Who's there?
It's Red Riding Hood, Grandma.
Oh, dearie, how nice of you to come. I'm too weak to get up, so just lift the latch and come in, dearie.
Good morning, Grandma.
Good morning, dearie.
Why is it so dark in here?
The light hurts my eyes.
How are you feeling?
Oh, weak, dearie, weak as paper. I need food, dearie. I need it desperately. What have you there in the basket?
Well, first I brought you all these lovely flowers from the forest.
Lovely, dearie, lovely, but you can't eat them. What's in the basket?
Well, first, Grandma, let me put these in some water and then...
Oh, never mind the flowers, Red Riding Hood. What's in the basket?
Food, Grandma.
Ah,
Here, let me show you. Mother made some broth and dumplings.
broth and dumplings.
Fresh bread and jam.
Fresh bread and jam.
Grandma, how deep your voice is.
Deep?
Oh, well, I've had a bad cold, you know.
And what big ears you have.
Well, the better to hear you with, my dear.
Oh, Grandma, what big eyes you
The
have.
better to see you with, my dear.
But, Grandma, what big teeth you
The
have.
better to eat that broth and dumplings, bread and jam, and to crack that nut. Give them to me, my dear.
Why, you're not Grandma at all. You're the wolf I met this morning. You tricked me.
Give me the basket, I say, or I'll eat you up.
No, you can't have it. It's for my Grandma. Where is she? Grandma, Grandma, where are you?
Here I am, Red Riding Hood. I'm coming.
And sure enough, coming up the path that led to the back door of her house was Red Riding Hood's grandma, and with her was a woodsman. The wolf ran to the window, took off the spectacles, and looked out. When he saw that the woodsman carried a hatchet, he spun around, and without even bothering to take off Grandma's nightdress and nightcap, he tore out the front door shouting,
I'll have my breakfast elsewhere. Goodbye, my dear. Goodbye.
Grandma came in the back door, and Red Riding Hood ran into her arms. Oh, how happy she was to see her, and how overjoyed her grandmother was to hold her in her arms. The poor old lady had been so worried, she had asked the kind woodsman to help her look for her granddaughter, and not being able to find her, they had returned to the house, and just in time. Red Riding Hood poured out her story to them, and she said,
Mother warned me about speaking to strangers, but I forgot, Grandma.
Well, I hope you've learned your lesson, dearie.
Yes, indeed, little girl. You were very lucky that we came along when we did. But it doesn't always happen that way. That gray wolf is a sly one and will eat almost anything when he's hungry. But I don't think we'll see him around here anymore. And Little Red Riding Hood, I'm sure you'll never talk to strangers again, eh?
Oh, I never will, I promise. Look, Grandma, what I brought you. A whole basket full of goodies to make you strong. Although I must say, you don't seem very sick to me.
No, dearie, I'm all well now. But I've got a mighty big appetite. What you got there in the basket?
Hot broth and dumplings.
Ooh.
Fresh bread Mother baked this morning. Jam. And the nut from Hippity the squirrel.
How nice, how nice. Oh, the broth is cold, but we'll heat it up. Mr. Woodsman, I hope we can have you for lunch.
You sound like the other Grandma. I'm afraid you can't have me for lunch, but I'll be glad to stay and join you if that's what you mean.
Oh, it certainly is. It most certainly is. Have him for lunch. Set the table.